Welcome to a hilarious game of Coastal Forest that we played against the Elios clan. Most of these guys are 2K plus rated, with a lot of them being in the top 100 team game rating in the world. Player 8 has come forward immediately to lame here, and he's serving as the flank of the enemy team, while Player 1, playing as the Britons, will be our flank. P8 is immediately finding two of the British sheep, which is pretty painful, and he'll go ahead and send those back home. P1's got some more sheep down here, though, and as long as he can pick those up, he should be fine. I'm playing as the second flank for our team, and because everyone on this map is so close and so reliably goes for wood lines, I'm going to go for a strategy where I'm just going to send a bunch of villagers forward and try to make things as crazy as possible for their flanks wood lines. Player 8 and Player 6 should both be susceptible to this type of attack, and it might give our team some good momentum. Player 8 looks like he might find more of P1 sheep, which is really painful, and we have Player 3 playing as the Turks as our first pocket, and in our deep pocket and the traditional water player, we've ran him a Magyar's player, which is really nice. And the enemy team has a Vikings pocket, which is really good as well. Player 8 does pick up those sheep. Player 8 has a really nice start here with a bunch of extra sheep, and P1 is letting us know that he's in some pain. P8 has sent a Vil forward to lame as well, but it doesn't look like he'll find a boar. So even though he got some extra sheep from P1, he at least also had to have that idle time. P1 let me know he lost his sheep, and since I'm going for this kind of licks strategy where I want to empower my team, I just send all my sheep to Player 1, and I'll send some Vils forward to go start fighting. My idle time gets pretty bad in this game, but as long as we're able to do enough damage to the enemy and distract them, we should be in a good position. P6 goes for the quick wall, but loses the villager to the scout. And while this normally isn't a very good play, as the scout is now quite low HP, and the enemy should get revenge in feudal age when their scout has higher HP, I'm never really planning to go up to feudal age, so I don't really care, and I'm just glad to get an early kill against a Vil. I've sent 4 more villagers forward, and I'll just go ahead and try to disrupt Player 8's woodline now. And if I can disrupt both of these 2 flank players on the enemy team, we should be in a pretty strong position. Back home, I've only got 4 on food, and the idle TC time has really started to rack up at 21 seconds already. I'm a 1900 player, so that feels pretty bad, but it's going to get worse, so we'll just go ahead and do our best on the front. I come into Player 8's wood line, and I try to take out this villager. And I should have kept attacking this Vil, but I make a mistake by not finishing it off, thinking that I'll get it later. But Loom does come in for Player 8 right now, so he'll have a decent chance at getting these away with P6's scout around as well. He gets a quick wall down for the chasers, and now I'm trying to block the wrong villager, I would say, and I really should have tried to block the low HP guy instead of this woman with higher HP, because she's probably going to be able to get away, and P6 should be able to use the scout to block my blocker and prevent this from working or reinforce, but she'll just keep running away, and he just has good micro. Again, he's a 2k2, so he's quite capable. P1 brings the scout in here, but I like that he pulls it back to preserve the HP, since scout HP is really important in the early game. Again, I didn't really play that way, but we're playing a little bit off meta in this game. I don't get the walls down, and I probably should have because P8 has reinforced here, and I'm now pushed away. I was thinking it might be better to batter down the lumber camp, but clearly P8 was able to reinforce and just not allow that to happen, which I like by him. So I'm now on the retreat here, and this villager is in a lot of danger, as she's being chased by 4 enemy villagers and a scout, and at this point I've just given up on this villager. P5 is fishing it up here, and he let us know in the early game here that he wanted to go for a sling strategy while playing water, like they do in Nations Cup. And Player 2 is also actually going to go for that strategy. So they're both going to sling kind of the first pocket, P5 slinging P3, and I guess P2 is actually going to sling Player 6, their first flank. I come in with the villagers here, just trying to be disruptive still, and just try to prevent Player 8 from being able to freely take wood and get up to the next stage easily. I've taken my next boar now, but my idle TC time is probably pretty horrible at this stage in the game. Yeah, it's at 1 minute and 40. And our team is actually behind 6 eco units at this stage, which is largely kind of my disaster in the forward. I'm continuing to commit to this strategy, though, and we do believe that it can work, because as long as the enemy is not able to produce army from their forward 2 players, they shouldn't be in a great position to fight this back long term. We just keep fighting against this house. As we take a quick look at the statistics, you can see that our first flank, the Britons player, is 300 res ahead of Player 8, and that puts him in a really good position to get archers out and win this area in the early feudal age. Our Vills come in on player 6's wood line, but he'll go ahead and get the quick walls down. But this should create some extra bumping here and just create a little bit of inefficiency. I send my Vills deeper here, looking for player 4's wood line, and I'm kind of hoping it'll be right here. But I start to realize that I'm probably a little bit too deep, and I should retreat. I might have wanted to stay and just retreat right back to player 8's house at this stage, and realize that around minute 9:30, players are going to start to hit up to the feudal age, and their scouts are going to be extremely dangerous, and they're going to be a lot more willing to take engagements against these villagers when they have the default feudal bonuses that come in on their scout. Player 8 sends in some villagers trying to get some chip damage against these vills, and they do not want to let us get home here. And we do get a little bit of damage on P8's scout. Unfortunately, he's quite delayed to the next stage, so he's not very willing to engage. Player 4 backs off as well, and our villagers are really just trying to fight their way home right now. Player 1 and player 3 come over with their scouts, and I decide to turn back in here because I don't realize that player 6 is already going to have scouts on the map, and I'm just kind of thinking that we might be okay staying forward. It looks like P4 is going fast castle with the villagers on gold. But now player 6 has 2 scouts in this area, and we're in a lot of danger. We do get on top of the one villager who's currently building the barrack, but we won't be able to delay this long term, as player 6's scouts should be able to take the initiative in this area. We are just trying to take fights with our villagers, and at this point I get way too cute with these vills and I try to quick wall them in, when I really should just be taking fights against the scouts. We wouldn't have gotten good trades in the fights either, but at least we would have gotten some value instead of absolutely nothing. But it's been a crazy game for the enemy team, and our economy is starting to stabilize, even though we're taking these heavy losses on the front. We're both at 99 eco now, and our team has a tiny bit more army. We're not taking great trades here, but at least we're fighting. Player 3's scout arrives as well, and the archers behind now will allow us to start to push this back across the map, because the enemy has no ranged units. We've taken a player out of the game for them, and he's not really able to produce anything until he gets this range up that he actually wants to be making in this game. But I'm continuing to run forward with villagers and take trades against scouts, which makes it very hard for player 6 and player 4 to mass army against us. And player 6 is really the only player on the enemy team who's been able to go for army in this game. P3 tries to dive, but player 8 gets the walls up. Really nice job there. And the villagers do a lot more damage against houses than scouts will. So we'll just go ahead and take the role of battering these down with the archers behind. Player 1 gets a bit closer here to deny the wall behind from player 8, and we'll just keep battering this wall down, and P3 will start to take out the range. Our eco lead continues to grow, and now we have 1.3 thousand military against only 500. Again, there are 3 2k2s on the enemy team, and we're absolutely rinsing them right now with villagers. We have more docks up than the enemy team as well, and player 5 does a nice job in this game to defend the fish, even though P2 has 12 fishing ships. And this is a pretty unusual build, but he is going for this full sling strategy that we saw in Nations Cup. And I don't really love sling strategies, but more power to these guys to try out something that's fun for them. He has sent 1400 res to player 6, and P6 has received only 1000 of those resources due to the tax. And P5 has slung 1100 to P3. The fights continue here, and our villagers have now gotten through along with player 1's archers, and this is really bad for the enemy team because P8 is now entirely off of wood, and his prospect for actually making archers is very low, as they're right next to these ranges and they'll be in a lot of danger. P6 is also pushed off of wood, and we'll get some kills here. And while this army that we have forward is very pesky, if a huge mass of scouts come in from P6, and he does get a huge trade against P3 scouts, which were isolated there, we'll be in a lot of danger. So I'm starting to realize that we might lose this army since it's not supported, and I'll just build a barracks here because the Armenians can make the Spearman in the Dark Age, so we'll go ahead and just produce Spearmen because we're seeing a huge amount of scouts from the enemy team. And the scouts do dive the archers, so we'll dive with some villagers against the scouts just to take trades to keep the archers alive for as long as possible, because they're really the priority unit for our team in this engagement. And my job is all about making it so that my team can succeed, even if I'm in a very weak position. As we lose most of the forward villagers here, player 1 will just hit and run with the archers and try to retreat, and P8 gets a tower up trying to secure this area, which has just been an absolute nightmare for him in this game. P1's doing a really nice job to micro back, and P8's been forced onto skirms, but finally player 4 has arrived with the knights. And at this point in the game, I'm a little bit confused why player 2 isn't full slinging P4. There's really no reason to give resources to player 6 because he can only make scouts right now. Player 4 will be able to use those resources on knights, which makes paying that tax to your teammate a lot more justifiable if you're slinging up to the castle age. So that might be a small mistake they made, but again, this is just something they're trying for Nations Cup, and we all make mistakes in every game. I'm dropping the town center forward now in an effort just to stay relevant in this game. I know that if I try to go to the feudal age right now, I won't be able to do anything, and if I do this, I can at least shoot down this tower, and we'll be able to stay right on top of player 8 and player 6's wood economies. Our team is 17 eco units ahead as we get this up, and we're feeling really confident about our position in this game, even though the score isn't great. It's really nice to have this type of forward, and unless player 4 gets a huge knight mass out, and he did start to receive some resources, he will be in a really tough position overall in terms of having the units necessary to fight against this massive archers and spearmen from P1. We also have 5 spearmen hidden in our barrack, and we'll be able to pop those out to use them against the knights. I think P6 really has the right idea here, and that player 4 should be following him. P4 seems like he wants to maybe take an engagement against these archers, but he's only got the first armor upgrade and no bloodlines. So these archers with the spearmen behind should be in an okay position, especially since they can back up to the town center. It looks like P1 will pull back his army, though, in response to player 4's raid attempt, and defend at home, which I don't hate. P4 seems pretty cautious about diving the archers there. I would have liked to see that when they were a bit separated from the spearmen. And player 8 now is in a position where he's forcing the spearmen out of the barracks, but we've broken through with the villagers, and we'll dive in this area and start to take the fight. This is one of the more ridiculous engagements that I've ever taken, I would say. And we have a 5 and 21 KD at this point. And it's probably going to get a lot worse because we don't really have the power units in this area. But unfortunately for player 8, P3 shows up with the light cavalry, and the deaths will really start to rack up for him, and this ended up looking like a great play, even though it was pretty ridiculous overall. And now that player 4's knights have returned, we're forced to completely retreat here. But once again, the enemy team is just left without a player who's legitimately able to play archers. P8 has 28 eco only, and we've got the fishing ships out, so we're up to 25 eco, and that really leaves us in an okay position. And it's pretty clear that we're the one forcing a lot more reactions than player 8, when all he has is these 5 skirmishers. And P4 is the lowest rated player on the enemy team. He's about a 1500, but he'll go ahead and raid with these knights now to try to get some initiative back for his team. If the enemy can get the initiative and make the armies fight in our end of the map, at least player 8 might be able to recover and become an archer player in this game. Player 4 is again being a little bit too passive with these knights, but again, he's probably having some struggles here because this isn't something you play against every day. He's getting the +2 armor and he's coming in close to P1's base, but he doesn't have bloodlines yet. And I'd almost like to see him take this fight still, because as player 3's knights come out, this fight is only going to get worse for him. The armor's going to be in 8 seconds, so he probably doesn't want to take the fight until then. But now that player 3's knights are here, this really isn't an engagement he can be taking anyways, and he's forced to back away. And these knights just really haven't gotten the value that they needed to get for the team. The idea was definitely for their team to have a lot more initiative off of player 6's slung knights, but all of the initiative is from player 3, who's also been receiving sling, and he's doing a great job of using his light cav forward while defending with the camels, knights, and a single light cav. The camel and light cav are actually really nice in this type of chase because they're the fast units, and they'll be able to actually poke down this knight army, which should really just turn and fight as they have the numbers. But the HP on this knight army is really low, and it continues just to get hit down. And player 4 is clearly trying to get the raid in here, but he's just been pursued all the way, and he's no longer able to take a winning fight in this area, even if he does turn. So that army really shouldn't get much value. We've got a second town center up here now, and we're just continuing to try to take forward map position on the enemy. Player 5 has the war galley upgrade, and player 2 does not, so he's going to be in a great position to protect the fish from our team. Player 3, player 5, and I all have fishing economies, so that's been really beneficial. Player 6 is adding town centers here in the north, but I don't know if I totally agree with that, as his team is so far behind militarily. We have 7.2 thousand army versus 4.6 thousand, and it's going to be really hard for them to recover if they're adding eco, but they are also behind there, so it's probably a position that they can no longer win in. When you're deleting your town center, it's really bad for your score naturally, so this type of play kind of artificially deflates our team score, and the fact that we have a solid lead right now means we're in a great position, which is really just emphasized by player 3 getting on top of the slinging pocket player 2, and now P2 is in a really tough position as this gold eco gets ripped up, and they'll start to resign. This was such a fun game, and I normally don't really enjoy Coastal Forest as it involves things like a lot of slinging and just a lot of scout archer play. But I really enjoyed making this one messy and kind of breaking the meta. Player 5 had a huge economy lead, and even though we had basically no eco, we put all of our teammates in a position to have more eco than their counterparts, and that was really our job in this game. We have a terrible 7 and 34 kill death ratio, but everyone on our team has a positive KD, and only 2 of the players on the enemy team were able to have a positive kill death ratio with all of the pressure that we delivered. We were really able to put our team in a position to succeed in this game, and it was just a ton of fun. If you're enjoying the content, please subscribe to the channel. It's free for you and very meaningful to me. This is Varus. Have a great day.